LL221 Tel Aviv Tower, you are clear for takeoff on runway 21.
Thursday, May 28, 2020, 5th of Sivan, 5780. This is Canadian Jewish Views. Part politics, part art, part culture, part Israel, all Canadian. On today's show, Andrea Freedman, Jewish Federation of Ottawa, Dr. Einat Wilf, celebrated author, a word from our chairs, plus words of wisdom from Rabbi Jared Grover at Beth Tikva in Toronto, and much more.
LL221 Toronto Tower, you are cleared to land on runway 33 right. Welcome to Canada. Welcome home.
I'm your host, Martin Sampson. I'm still in my basement. That's still canned applause, but this week it ain't fake. That's all of us at CJA showing very real appreciation to you. Late Thursday last, we posted the first episode of Canadian Jewish Views. We could not believe the response. Hundreds of lovely messages from right across the network, including one from as far afield as Georgia. And I don't mean the United States. I mean the beautiful country in the Caucasus. It's gorgeous. Google it. Shout out to Mladen and a huge Toda Rabah to all of you. Last week, I promised to explain this. Martin, are you sort of Jewish? Got a Facebook message from someone who seemed genuinely concerned, asking, what sort of person asks a question like that? A fictitious one. Last week was our first episode, so that envelope was empty. But behind the fiction is a truth. When I started working in the Jewish community 7 years ago, I immersed myself in all the cool stuff. The history, the tradition, the big ideas. Thank you for Shabbat, by the way. That is a nice contribution to the human project. By December of 2013, I had become a student of all things Jewish. It was Hanukkah. I was cooking latkes and trying to explain to a 5-year-old just what a schfanz Antiochus IV was, and just what a miracle it was that one day of oil radiated light for Judah and his Maccabees for 8 days. Long story short, temple liberated. Not the last time the Jewish people would take a perilously close brush with death and turn it into a feast. After relaying this story to my eldest son, with all the earnestness that only a 5-year-old can muster, he asked, Dad, are you sort of Jewish? To which I responded, that's a good way of putting it. That's a true story. Here's another true story. Andrea Freedman is a force. She's an inspiring Jewish leader who has dedicated herself professionally and invested herself personally in contributing to her community. I asked Andrea, tell us what the Federation did at the outset of the crisis and what you're doing now.
Federation was determined to meet all the immediate needs, to help feed people and meet emergency needs at Hill Lodge, and Tamir, and Jewish Family Services, as we did really deep and intensive conversations with our agencies and the people on the front lines of this crisis. We recognized that the needs were going to outstrip the demands of our $360,000 reserve fund. The emergency campaign for community resilience was launched less than 48 hours ago. We set a goal of $2.7 million, which is a huge sum of money for a community of Ottawa's size in the worst economic environment possible. And yet we felt compelled to set such a bold goal because there's no other alternative. To make sure that the most vulnerable amongst us are protected, to make sure that people have continued access to Jewish life, and to make sure that cherished Jewish institutions that have been such an integral part of people's identity up to now can continue to perform at a high level going forward. So we launched the emergency campaign because anything else for us was unacceptable and unthinkable. For everybody who gets through each and every day and still has the bandwidth and the compassion to help other people, the only thing you can say is thank you.
And that's what we want to say to you, Andrea. Thank you. You want to be inspired? Check out Jewish Ottawa Helps, a Facebook page established by the Jewish Federation of Ottawa designed to connect people who need help with people who want to help. Contrary to a rumor that's circulating at an elementary school in Ottawa, I am not the Vice President of Israel. I am, however, the Vice President of Communications at CJA, arguably one of the most effective pro-Israel organizations in the world. And that puts me right at the center of things. And I promise to tell you a little bit about Jewish conspiracies. For that, we need different light. All right, lean in. In my study of the Jewish community, what I've found is a bunch of people running around with great vigor, sometimes bumping into each other, sometimes treading on each other's toes in service of trying to make the community a little bit better. Not all the Jews all the time, but in my observation, a lot of the Jews a lot of the time. I've been poking around the Jewish community for 7 years. The conspiracy that I've unearthed is the one where the Jews get together and try to figure out how to make this world a little bit better for a few more people. And if you don't see that, consider turning on the lights. Dr. Einat Wilf is a self-described lefty, former member of the Knesset in Israel, and a great friend of CJ's. She's also a whole bunch of other things, but the bio's too long. Check the show notes. She and her co-author, Adi Schwartz, just dropped a truth bomb into the discussion about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
The main message of the book is that Western indulgence of the Palestinian dream, they call the return, has really obstructed the path to peace for 7 decades. We thought the problem was land, settlements, Israel's military presence in the West Bank, that the Palestinians want a state. This is the normal conversation about why we don't have peace. We've had it all wrong. What they care for is not all of these things, even though they don't like them. What they care for much more is a right of return, which is neither a right nor a return. This remains the most important thing for the Palestinians. Jews are not going anywhere. Arabs are not going anywhere. And I do think the best way forward is for each one of us to have our own state. But I am much more aware now of how difficult it's going to be. I'm a lefty, first of all, on all issues that are kind of lefty issues. Feminism, LGBTQ rights, all of these things, you'll find me way out there in the left. But yeah, I'm the kind of lefty that a lot of right-wingers like. Shalom, Canada. תהיו בריאים, לשטוף ידיים.
That clip was taken from a much longer discussion that my colleague Paul had with Dr. Wilf. Paul, by the way, could be the person for whom the word mensch was coined. He's been serving the community for 30 years and a more intellectually honest person you will not find. Anyhow, Paul had a very long conversation with Einat, and we're thinking about releasing that as a podcast. If that interests you, please write to us at views@cija.ca. Then we'll do a random draw, and 5 of you will get a copy of The War of Return. Samson, what is CJA? Glad you asked. CJA is the advocacy agent of Jewish federations across Canada. Our mandate is to preserve and protect the quality of Jewish life through advocacy. What the heck does that mean? Here's the thing. What we do is we go and we talk to people who are making the laws of this country or people who are involved in Canada's national conversation, and we relay to them the perspectives of the Jewish community we represent. Not all Jews. We don't represent all Jews. Anyone who says they represent all Jews doesn't know Jews. But we represent a lot of Jews, and we certainly represent the broad consensus position on a whole range of issues, including anti-Semitism, community security, human rights, and the important role Israel plays in Jewish identity and tradition. We're good at what we do, but I would argue that a big part of our success is because our perspective is valued, we deliver it respectfully, and it represents a broad consensus within the Jewish community in Canada. Right now, we're focused on advocating on behalf of the charitable and nonprofit sectors to ensure that charities and nonprofits have what they need to continue doing what they do best: serve vulnerable Canadians. For more on what we've been up to, let's hear from Joel Reitman and Jeff Rosenthal, co-chairs of the CJA board.
We have a window on the inspiring work being done by Canadian charities during these unsettled times.
CJA is doing what we do best, which is advocating on behalf of our community.
Our focus is ensuring that Canadian charities are eligible for and able to access programs like the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, so that they can continue doing the important work that they do.
We've hosted roundtable discussions and webinars with political leaders like Ahmed Hussein, Federal Minister of Families and Children, and Toronto Mayor John Tory. In addition, we've had ongoing dialogue with Quebec Premier François Legault and Ontario Minister of Finance Rod Phillips. CEO of CJA, Shimon Fogel, testified before the Senate, providing concrete suggestions on how to expand federal programs in a way that makes sense for our community. CJA, as your advocacy agent, takes great pride and care in representing your interests to the various levels of government.
If you have any questions for Jeff or me, please email at views@cija.ca.
We hope that you, your families, and your friends remain safe and well during these unsettling times.
Joel and Jeff lead a board of directors made up of some of the most dedicated community people that I've ever met. If you want to know more about them or what we do here at CJA, visit our website and check out the FAQs. New thing, right now, take out your phone and do a selfie video and answer this question. Is it too soon to open synagogues? Make sure the clip is 15 seconds or less and email it to us at views@cj.ca. We'll put the best ones on the air. Housekeeping, everything we mentioned in this show is linked below in the show notes. Last week, we got lots of requests for more Yiddish, more Hebrew, and of course, more French. We also received a note from someone in the hearing impaired community, and in the coming weeks, our content will reflect those requests. And before we go, we're gonna look again in the mailbag. Jeff writes to us on Facebook, "This is not news, this is CJA PR." Yes, that's true, Jeff. This is not news. I think we'll all agree that we're far closer to newsletter than we'll ever be to news. And this is CJA attempting a new way of relating to our public. So please send your feedback. We want to hear it. We're your advocacy agent, and what you say matters to us. Chag Shavout Sameach. I hope you're able to spend some time with your families on this very important holiday for the Jewish people. For my part, I'm going to try to explain to a couple of preteens the significance of the giving of the laws. Fortunately, I have cheesecake that I can lure them in with. And may I also offer you a good Shabbos. Again, brilliant idea. And before we go, words of wisdom from Rabbi Jared Grover.
Who is mighty? According to Ben Zoma, it is one who can conquer his inclinations. Man's ability to endure short-term pain for the sake of long-term gain might be his greatest and most noble trait.
I'm ready now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for the bloopers, Joel.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
What do you think is a better word in Yiddish to describe Antiochus IV? Schmuck or Schwanz? But you said to call if I had any question.